Joe, USC versus Illinois. USC making a lot of noise over the last couple of weeks of how efficient they've been offensively, while Illinois is coming off a really devastating loss versus Indiana. When you look at this game, you think of what?
USC, by the way, 6.5-point favorite on FanDuel, over 59.5 also on FanDuel for this matchup. Blake, I'm really excited for this game because USC has been operating in the shadows in a way. You got a lot of these late night games. Nobody really knows what they've been up to, but they've been slowly climbing. And if you've been tracking and paying attention, you know that this USC team looks different. And the way that they look different is they've got a lot of really talented safeties, and they've got a very underrated, impactful, actually underrated is not even a good word because they lead the country in sacks at the current moment, a disruptive defensive line. Going into a matchup against Illinois that has given up 16 sacks through 4 games, and they had a ton of issues moving opposing defensive lines thus far, and especially against Indiana, this is a spot for USC to set the tone. It's not going to be as sexy as of a ranked win as I think some thought it was going to be from the preseason because of how bad they got smoked by Indiana. But this still is a quality team. It is still a challenge to have to travel from USC to Illinois. They're apparently traveling on Thursday this week to give themselves a little bit of a boost and a little bit of an advantage, but it is still going to be difficult in that manner. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that this team has shown that they are worthy of being ranked highly and that they could be one of the best Big Ten teams. My last part with this, Illinois is screwed because of the injuries that they suffered in their secondary. Xavier Scott is going to be out for most of the season, and they've got like 4 or 5 other guys that are dealing with injuries. Jacoby Lane, Mekhi Lemon, elite athletes, premier receivers are going to cause problems.
And I think Lane's going this week, right? Like, I think he's pretty...
I believe it's Tuesday when we're taping this, so there's always kind of hard to find clarity on that stuff. But I like the idea, Blake, of USC covering that 6.5-point spread on FanDuel.
I do too. And listen, here's the thing. I think Maiava has been better than Caleb Williams in this system because of just how efficient this offense is moving the football. Joe, when we talked about Caleb Williams, me and you had, I don't want to say complete knockdown, drag out arguments, but we had disagreements. I felt like Caleb got outside of the offense in that final year. Maiava comes in after taking over from Miller Moss, and he's playing with inside the system. The thing that's been so intriguing to me is even against bad opponents the last couple of years, they haven't really had the ability to run the football. They're 11th in the country in total offense. They're 12th in the country in passing offense. Oh, by the way, they're top 10 in the country in rushing offense. They're dominating all over the place. And, Joe, I look at this situation and say to myself, have they fixed some things and gotten more physical up front? Maiava's been good in the run game. They've just dominated offensively and against all of their opponents in all 3 levels. I think, like you said, Lemon and Lane are going to be able to find ways. I think McCray's finding ways. They're tight end. Their running game's been highly efficient. They look like what I think Lincoln felt that their offense would look like at USC moving forward. But, Joe, I got to be real with you. I already assumed that a Lincoln Riley offense was going to be able to put up yards and points. They're first in the country in sacks. USC, let me repeat what I just said. A Lincoln Riley defense through 4 weeks is number 1 in the country in sacks. What just happened to Luke Altmeyer last week against Indiana? He got obliterated. They could not protect him worth a damn. And this team in a second year with their new DC is just not the team to have struggles in pass pro offensively. Joe, I think Altmeyer is going to be running for his life. They have 16 sacks. They're getting 4 sacks per game. You could not do this against an Indiana front seven, which who knows what Indiana really is. I still think in the back of my mind, look, you blew out Illinois, but what are you going to be moving forward? But I look at USC and I think, okay, well, Indiana made a statement. Does this front seven make a statement for USC this week too? Joe, they were bad. Altmeyer was under pressure and getting hit all night. And you're going up against a team that's number 1 in the country in sacks, which is so wild to think about with USC after coming off of the Alex Grinch era.
I know, and this is why I've been so bullish on D'Anton Lynn, and I think that
it's been so good. Joe,
it frustrates
Broyles Award. I think
he should be in the conversation. He should be in the conversation for how much of a transformation they've had. They're getting so much better, and they're deficient in a couple of areas that they could be stronger in. But to see guys like Anthony Lucas play to their potential, and I've been a big Kamari Ramsey fan as a prospect for the upcoming draft. I think that's a first-round kid. The one area that has been a little troubling for USC as it was
that's secondary.
Yeah, well, it's more specific than that because they've got really good safety play. Their corners haven't been great. But here's the thing. We're not going to be talking about that until later on. I don't think that Illinois is the team that's going to really challenge and stress this this corner room for USC. They're 57th in EPA per dropback. They're fine. Altmeyer, as you said, is running for his life. I think that there's ways for them to survive defensively because they're going to get after Altmeyer so quickly because that Illinois offensive line is so bad. This all comes down to me, man, the disparity between Illinois' offense not living up to the expectations that we thought we had for them in the preseason and how much USC has outplayed their expectations defensively because their D-line's been so good.
Yeah, look, that secondary, for what it's worth, is 88th in the country in passing yards allowed. 88th. 88th. You talk about the corner play, Joe. If Altmeyer does get time, things could get a little interesting. How do you number one in the country in sacks, but 88th in the country in passing yards allowed? How is that even possible? It just goes to prove that your secondary is not being great at all. And you said, to be specific, let's talk about corner. Well, then, Joe, it's been horrendous. I just don't think Illinois is the team to test that at all. Right. I really don't. And I think Altmeyer, look, I felt bad for Luke Altmeyer last week, to be real with you. And I think a lot of the same is going to happen here. And whether it does, whether it doesn't, I don't know. What I do know is this USC team is trending. And I think a lot of people, because of what's happened through the first 4 weeks, have not really gotten a lot of eyes on them. Joe, they run the football at a highly, highly effective rate. And I think that has been, and really stopping the run too, their play up front has been the most different. We want to talk about with Lincoln, the quarterback play. We want to talk about receiver play. They look different up front. And if that's the level of play that they're going to get up front, that's what's going to make them more of a contender than any time that they were in the last couple of years.
Absolutely. And I think that ultimately this is like a real big narrative play game. This is one of those games where they get to prove and to show that they're trending upward. And we talked about in the preseason how USC, they don't necessarily have like an easy schedule, but they've got a lot of favorable matchups. And it looks even more favorable with the game that they have coming up against Notre Dame because Notre Dame's problems are stopping explosive passing attacks, and USC is currently, to this point, the number one team in EPA per dropback. They are incredibly, incredibly explosive. I think another area, just one last thought from me on this, they also, one of the things that's been talked about by Lincoln Riley and something that's hurt them a little bit, they've had a lot of penalties. They've had a lot of silly miscues with penalties. I think that's part of the reason why the Michigan State game ends up being as close as it was. Illinois is not the team to make mistakes and to have those penalties. They definitely need to be cleaner.
They do. And listen, you keep having those penalties, that's what's going to get you beat. It will get you beat fast. But listen, I do think, for what it's worth, USC, regardless of what happens this week or moving forward, I feel like right now that they're moving in the right direction, and that's all that you can really ask for. All right.